In recent NBA history, we've seen foreign-born superstars get tons of hate from the American media, as well as American-born players. And everyone who follows the sport knows those international players get their fair share of flack, as well as criticism. Now, with that being said, there are two people who think the exact opposite, that being Kendrick Perkins, a former player, and Draymond Green, a current player. And as we come to see, both these guys think European players have and still are getting a pass from the NBA media.
I saw a list today that Stephen A. put out, Green said, on the Draymond Green show. It was like players under the most pressure to win a championship. I think James Harden was 1, Jason Tatum was 2, CP3 was 3, Joker was 4, and Luka wasn't even on the list. I feel like over the years, European players have not caught the same flack for not winning a championship as us players have, and I do not understand that.
Now, first off, I do find it hilarious, the quote-unquote new media, who hates ESPN and talking heads, who bash players, all of a sudden now want to bash European players and think the media gives them a pass. And when Draymond says European stars, of course, we know he's talking about, is Luka and Nikola Jokić. And when it comes to those guys, from my own perspective, I think those players get tons of pressure and tons of criticism. And quite frankly, Draymond's take isn't rooted in reality. As looking at the Joker, I would personally argue he's gotten the most crap from the media out of any star over the past 3 years. When he won his first MVP, that was called the worst MVP of the past 35 years. When he won it last year, he was called undeserving, and there's a weird narrative where he's a playoff choker and a playoff underperformer. The media at this point goes pretty hard on Jokić when it comes to holding him accountable and putting pressure on him to win, as Denver this year is the first seed until this point that exceeded expectations. And with Jokić being 28, this team's goal 100% is a championship, as they're healthy, locked and loaded, and ready to go. Now, trying to play devil's advocate for Draymond and understand his point, maybe in 2021 and 22, the media slightly gave him a pass for having an injured team. I don't totally agree with that, but maybe just maybe that's Draymond's point. And if that's what Draymond actually believes, I would respond with this. Could any NBA star, international or not, succeed without his two best players? Because minus those guys, Jokić did a pretty damn good job and was slammed for it night after night by Kendrick Perkins and especially Nick Wright, who's the Skip Bayless to Jokic's LeBron James. Now, looking past Jokić, our second European star, we have Luka Dončić. And when it comes to the media, compared to Jokić, Luka doesn't get nearly as much criticism or hate. But with that being said, Luka at age 24 really shouldn't have the same expectations as Jokić at 28 with a championship caliber team. And looking at last year's playoffs, Luka 100% overachieved and went beyond what anyone thought he could do, beating the 49-win Jazz and the 64-win Phoenix Suns. That year for Dallas was their first playoff series win since 2011 and their first West Finals appearance also since 2011. And Luka this year came back even stronger, leading the NBA in scoring at 33.4 points. After last year's playoffs and Luka's individual play this year, I don't think there's any reason Luka Dončić should have as much pressure as the top NBA stars. Because once again, he's only 24 years old, with his birthday being last week. And one thing Draymond did stress was European players not being held to the same standard when it comes to winning championships. Looking through all of NBA history, very rarely do you have a player who leads a team to a championship under the age of 25. And looking at the last 25 years, only twice has that happened, that being Tim Duncan in 99 and Dwayne Wade in 06. And looking at those two players, what do they have behind them? I would argue the two most stable organizations of the 21st century. And staying with championship expectations, one player Luka's compared to all the time is James Harden. And some fans, even players, argue Luka at this point isn't getting nearly as much hate as Harden got back in Houston. Now, comparing these two players really is apples to oranges, as once again Luka Dončić is 24 years old, compared to Harden, when he was in his prime in Houston, was 27, 28, 29, and even 30 years old. That was a prime James Harden failing to win championships, compared to Luka, who hasn't even entered his prime and already had made the West Finals. So looking at both Luka and the Joker, those guys of course get a lot of media hate, as well as criticism. But looking at the creme de la creme back in the day, in 2021, there was one foreign superstar who got the most hate I've ever seen. That being Giannis Antetokounmpo. Back in 2019, 2020, even leading into 2021, the media was on Giannis 24/7, saying he was a playoff choker, underperformer, he never won a title, he should leave Milwaukee, and someone as far as saying he was the Robin of his own team. All that type of nonsense followed Giannis into the NBA Finals, and until Game 6, the doubters weren't silenced. And even afterwards, after scoring 50, there were some current NBA players arguing Chris Middleton could possibly win Finals MVP. When it comes to Giannis as a European superstar, I can make an 8-part documentary on the hate he faced and the adversity he overcame. And looking back at Dre's point, once again saying European players aren't held to the same standard, I think Giannis, as well as Jokić, even Luka to a lesser degree, proves that statement 100% wrong. So looking at those three players, those guys are all current NBA stars. But looking at past European stars, those guys also faced tons of criticism when it came to the NBA media. For example, Dirk Nowitzki pre-2011 got killed all the time. Of course, everyone knew he was a great skilled big man, but the knock on him that he was soft, didn't have guts, and wasn't a killer when it came to the playoffs. And the crap Dirk got all the 2000s, while still being very good individually and team-wise, is the same crap KG, Chris Webber, McGrady, and any ringless superstar of that decade also got. It wasn't a European versus American thing, it was an NBA media thing. And looking on a smaller scale, Pau Gasol also, before 09, had the label a soft Euro big who wasn't built for the playoffs. My main point is pretty simple. When it comes to NBA superstars, when they don't win championships in their prime with a capable supporting cast, they're going to get criticized and dragged through the mud. And looking at an American-born star, Kevin Garnett winning in 08 washed away all the sins that happened in Minnesota. The same thing for Dirk in 2011 and Pau Gasol in 09. It's not American versus Euro, black versus white, it's a thing the NBA media happens to do. Is it unfair? Sometimes yes. But at the end of the day, most of these superstars, for the most part, are held to the same standard.
And Draymond Green is not the only player or former player that feels the way that about Europeans not getting held accountable for us being under pressure winning a title. I have no problem with your list, except why is Jokić not number one? Why is CP3 number one? Why is James Harden number two? Jokić is the two-time MVP.
Because I said because they're running out of time.
Season.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that. Right. But at the same time, we're talking about your back-to-back MVP. Why is he not under pressure for us delivering or winning a championship? Hell, why is he not under pressure for us making it back to the conference finals? Why is his record so horrible over the last 2 years in the postseason? I believe he's like 1-8 or 1-9 or something to that nature. Now I get it that people say he's been shorthanded or whatever the case may be.
That clip right there set some sort of record, because in under a minute Kendrick Perkins raised 2 points they're immediately debunked and explained. First off, Stephen A. Smith had to explain to Perkins why he had Harden CP3 ahead of Jokić, is both those guys are over the hill of 30, compared to Jokić, who's only 28. Now Perkins' second point was saying Jokić in the playoffs has a bad record. Perkins himself debunked this in the next 10 seconds, citing Jamal Murray as well as Porter being injured like he should. And looking at one larger point, When it comes to the best bigs in the game, I think Joel Embiid, to a large degree, has been given a pass by the NBA media. As looking at his teammate help, past and present, his roster's been pretty damn good. He doesn't have the accolades of Jokić, but the expectations should be just as high. As in Philly, he has Maxey, James Harden, Tobias Harris, Melton, PJ, George Niang, and even Jaden McDaniels. In Philly this year, they top 10 defense as well as offense. When it comes to both Jokić and Embiid, I think one guy, that being the Joker, is more heavily criticized. Now, going full circle with this video, looking at Jokić, Luka, and Giannis, and the so-called hate they get, Draymond Green and Kendrick Perkins are oblivious to the media in that regard. And of course, Draymond and Kendrick, they have a right to their own opinions and their own perspectives. But taking a back seat from it, being a fan's perspective, seeing the whole picture, I think Jokić, Luka, and Giannis got their fair share of hate as European stars. And to many others, those international players have not gotten a pass by the media. So, as always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.